I used to think our greatest trials were behind us, but it turns out they were just beginning. My name is Helena, and at 62 years old, I thought I had seen it all. I've been a nurse for over 30 years, caring for others through their most vulnerable moments. Little did I know, my own life was to be turned upside down. Mom. I don't know how you do it, Martha said, shaking her head in admiration. Working those long shifts at the hospital and still coming home to a clean house and a hot meal. Dad's been such a rock, taking care of everything on the home front. I smiled warmly at my daughter, feeling a surge of gratitude for my husband, Roy. After retiring from his engineering job a few years ago, he had insisted on managing our household so I could focus on my nursing career. Your father has been a godsend, I agreed. I'm not sure I could have kept up this pace without his support. Little did I know, those words would soon come back to haunt me. Later that evening, as I was getting ready for bed, my phone pinged with a notification from our bank. Unusual activity on our account. Frowning, I opened the app, fully expecting it to be a false alarm or a simple mistake. Roy handled all our finances these days, so I hadn't really paid close attention to the statements in quite some time. But as I scrolled through the transactions, my heart began to race. Luxury hotel bookings, expensive restaurant charges, lavish purchases from high-end boutiques, all on dates when Roy claimed to be out volunteering or running errands. Suddenly, his frequent absences from home took on a more sinister hue. At first, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe he was just treating himself after years of hard work and sacrifice. But the dates, the amounts, the patterns, it all pointed to something more insidious. A sickening realization began to take root. My husband, the man I had trusted implicitly for over 40 years, might be betraying me in the cruelest way imaginable. I sat on the edge of our bed, clutching my phone, as a kaleidoscope of emotions swirled within me. Anger, hurt, disbelief, and a creeping sense of determination. I refused to be just another statistic, another woman discarded and disrespected in her later years. No, I would not confront Roy directly. Not yet. I needed proof, a solid foundation to stand on before I made my move. With trembling hands, I began documenting every suspicious transaction, every unexplained absence. This was just the beginning, but I would get to the bottom of this, no matter how painful the truth might be. One way or another, I would regain control of my life. Roy might have thought he could take advantage of my trust, but he was about to learn just how resilient and resourceful this 62-year-old nurse could be. The next day, I met my dear friend Linda for lunch, as we did every few weeks. Linda and I had been nurses together for years, bonding over the shared challenges and triumphs of our demanding careers. "So how's everything going with you and Jim?" I asked, trying to keep my tone casual despite the turmoil brewing inside me. Linda's face lit up with a warm smile. "Oh, it's been wonderful. We're actually planning a little anniversary getaway next month. Jim surprised me with a reservation at that fancy resort up in the mountains. You know, the one with the spa and the incredible views?" My heart skipped a beat as she described the very same luxury hotel I had seen charged to our account on a weekend when Roy claimed to be volunteering at the local shelter. I forced a smile, nodding along as Linda gushed about the romantic trip. "That sounds just lovely," I managed to say, my mind racing. "You two deserve some quality time together after all these years." As Linda continued chatting, I found it increasingly difficult to focus on her words. The pieces were falling into place, and the picture they formed made my stomach churn. Roy's frequent absences, the unexplained charges, the fancy hotel getaway, it all pointed to one inescapable conclusion. My husband was having an affair. I excused myself to the restroom, needing a moment to collect my thoughts. In the privacy of the stall, I allowed the tears to flow, my body shaking with a potent mix of heartbreak and rage. How could he do this to me, to our family, after everything we'd been through together? But even as the pain threatened to consume me, a steely resolve took root. I would not be a victim in this story. Roy might have thought he could deceive me, but he was gravely mistaken. I would gather the evidence, make a plan, and when the time was right, I would strike back with a vengeance he never saw coming. Splashing some water on my face, I took a deep breath and rejoined Linda, putting on my best poker face. I couldn't let on that anything was amiss, not until I had everything in place. For now, I would play along, all the while plotting my next move. Over the following weeks, I became a master of deception, matching Roy's lies with my own carefully crafted facade. Whenever he mentioned his volunteer nights, I would simply nod and smile, and making no indication that I suspected the truth. All the while, I was meticulously documenting his movements, tracking his expenditures, and gathering the proof I would need to bring his house of cards crashing down. The more I uncovered, the angrier I became, not just at Roy, but at myself for being so blind, for trusting him so completely. But that anger fueled my determination. I was done being the naive, trusting wife. It was time to show Roy and the world just how strong and resilient this 62-year-old woman could be. With each passing day, the evidence against Roy mounted, and my determination grew stronger. I knew I needed irrefutable proof of his betrayal before I could take any decisive action. So one morning, I called in sick to the hospital and set my plan in motion. I tracked Roy's movements from the moment he left the house, maintaining a safe distance to avoid detection. He went about his usual routine, running errands and grabbing lunch at a local diner, giving no outward indication that anything was amiss. But I knew better than to let my guard down. Finally, in the early evening, Roy's car pulled into the parking lot of an upscale restaurant in the city's affluent district. My heart pounded as I watched him exit the vehicle and straighten his jacket, clearly preparing for a special occasion. This had to be it, the moment I had been dreading, yet simultaneously longing for. Slipping into the restaurant through a side entrance, I found a secluded spot where I could observe without being seen. And there he was, my husband of over 40 years, greeting a strikingly beautiful woman with a warm embrace. The way they held each other, the familiarity of their movements, left no doubt in my mind. This was Roy's mistress. I felt the air leave my lungs as a tidal wave of emotions crashed over me. Anger, betrayal, heartbreak, it was all I could do to remain composed and focused on my mission. Steadying my trembling hands, I pulled out my phone and began snapping photos, documenting the intimate interactions between Roy and his lover. As they were seated at their table, I studied the woman's face, committing every detail to memory. She couldn't have been more than 45, with long, chestnut hair and a radiant smile that seemed to captivate Roy completely. I watched, sickened, as he gazed at her with an adoration I hadn't seen from him in years. The hours ticked by excruciatingly slowly as they lingered over their meal, laughing and touching in ways that made my stomach churn. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they rose to leave, sharing one last passionate kiss before parting ways. I followed at a safe distance, my mind racing with 1,000 unanswered questions and a burning desire for vengeance. Once Roy returned home, I retreated to my car, the weight of the evening's revelations threatening to crush me. But even as the tears streamed down my face, I refused to surrender to despair. No, this was merely the first step in my quest for justice. With a steadying breath, I reviewed the damning photos, letting the evidence of Roy's deceit fuel the fire burning within me. He might have thought he could carry on this sordid affair indefinitely, but he was gravely mistaken. I was just getting started. From that moment on, there was no turning back. I would uncover every last detail of Roy's betrayal, gathering the ammunition I needed to bring his world crashing down around him. He had made the grave error of underestimating me, and he would soon learn just how devastating the consequences could be. With the damning evidence of Roy's affair burning a hole in my pocket, I knew I needed to take the next step. I couldn't do this alone, not only for emotional support, but to ensure I covered all my bases legally and financially. This was a battle I intended to win. I reached out to my younger sister, Patricia, a retired teacher whose wisdom and level-headedness had always been a guiding force in my life. We met for coffee at a quiet cafe, and as soon as she saw my face, she knew something was terribly wrong. "Helena, what is it? You look like you've seen a ghost," she said, her brow furrowed with concern. Taking a deep breath, I laid everything out for her. The suspicious charges, the luxury getaways, and finally the incriminating photos of Roy with his mistress. Patricia's eyes widened in disbelief as the truth sank in. "That lying, cheating snake," she hissed, her usual calm demeanor giving way to righteous anger on my behalf. "After everything you've done for him, for your family?" I nodded, fighting back tears as the weight of Roy's betrayal threatened to crush me once more. I don't know how long this has been going on, or how deep the deception runs, but I can't confront him yet, not until I have an airtight plan in place. Patricia reached across the table, taking my hand in hers with a reassuring squeeze. You're doing the right thing, sis. That bastard doesn't deserve a woman like you. We'll take him for everything he's worth, and then some. Over the next few weeks, Patricia became my co-conspirator, my rock in the storm of turmoil that had upended my life. Together, we strategized, considering every possible angle and outcome. We knew there would be fallout, both emotionally and financially, but our primary concern was protecting my career and ensuring Martha's life wasn't disrupted more than necessary. With Patricia's guidance, I began meticulously documenting every shred of evidence against Roy, from bank statements to phone records. I also reached out to an old friend, Caroline, whose savvy business acumen and extensive connections would prove invaluable in the battles to come. Don't worry, Helena, Caroline assured me during one of our clandestine meetings. We'll make sure you get everything you're entitled to, and then some. Roy won't know what hit him. As the pieces fell into place, I felt a sense of empowerment slowly replacing the despair that had threatened to consume me. Roy might have thought he could discard me like yesterday's trash, but he was sorely mistaken. I was a woman reborn, fueled by a burning desire for justice and retribution. No more would I be the meek, trusting wife, blindly following her husband's lead. From now on, I would be the master of my own destiny, and Roy would pay dearly for his transgressions. With Patricia and my friends by my side, I was ready to wage war, and I didn't intend to lose. With Patricia and Caroline's support, I began laying the groundwork for my grand exit strategy. Every move had to be calculated, every contingency accounted for. Roy couldn't be allowed to gain the upper hand, not for a single moment. At home, I maintained a careful facade of normalcy, greeting Roy with a warm smile and engaging in our usual routines. All the while, I was slowly packing away essentials, organizing important documents, and transferring what assets I could into secure accounts he couldn't access. My friends at the hospital proved invaluable allies, helping me secure a new living arrangement and offering emotional support during those long, sleepless nights. I'd worked too hard, sacrificed too much, to let Roy's deception derail my career or my financial security. With each passing day, the deception weighed more heavily on my conscience, but I refused to falter, drawing strength from the memories of the life Roy and I had built together, a life he had so callously discarded for his own selfish desires. Finally, the perfect opportunity presented itself. Roy announced he would be volunteering for a long weekend, no doubt squandering our hard-earned money on another lavish rendezvous with his mistress. As I wished him a safe trip, feigning cheerful ignorance, a surge of adrenaline coursed through my veins. This was it, the moment I had been meticulously preparing for. The second Roy's car pulled out of the driveway, Patricia and I sprang into action. We worked with military precision, swiftly packing the essentials and loading them into her car. Every box, every bag represented another piece of my life being reclaimed from the wreckage of Roy's betrayal. With the practical matters handled, I turned my attention to the emotional side of my grand exit. I gathered Roy's most prized possessions. The vintage watch I'd gifted him on our 25th anniversary, the framed photos from our dream vacation in Italy, even his beloved recliner, and arranged them in the center of the living room. Then I laid out the evidence of his infidelity, bank statements, phone records, and most damningly, the incriminating photos of him with his mistress. I wanted him to see, with crystal clarity, the depth of his transgressions laid bare before him. Finally, I penned a letter, pouring out my anguish and my resolve in equal measure. Roy, I wrote, my hand trembling with a potent mix of sorrow and rage. For over 40 years, I gave you everything, my love, my loyalty, my unwavering support, and you repaid me with deceit and disrespect, shattering the sacred vows we made before God. I took a deep, steadying breath, steeling my nerves for the words that would sever our once unbreakable bond. I deserve better than to be cast aside like an old, worn-out relic. I deserve a partner who cherishes me, who values the life we built together. Clearly, you are no longer that man. So I'm leaving, Roy, leaving you to the wreckage of your own making. Don't try to find me. Just know that you brought this upon yourself and upon us." With those parting words, I sealed the letter, placing it atop the stack of evidence like a damning verdict. My message was clear. The jig was up, and there would be no second chances. Hand in hand with Patricia, I took one last look around the home that had once represented my hopes and dreams. Then, with my head held high and my spirit fortified by an unshakable resolve, I walked out the door, slamming it shut on that chapter of my life once and for all. The calm before the storm had passed. Now the real battle was about to begin. The day had finally arrived, the day I would sever ties with Roy and reclaim my life once and for all. As he prepared to leave for his supposed volunteer weekend, I fought to maintain my composure, greeting him with a warm smile that betrayed none of the turmoil churning within me. "Have a great trip," I said, pressing a tender kiss to his cheek. "I'll miss you, but I know how important this work is to you." Roy beamed, completely oblivious to the fact that his world was about to come crashing down around him. "I'll be back before you know it, dear. Love you." With those parting words, he was gone, driving off to pursue his sordid affair while I put the final phases of my plan into motion. The second his car disappeared from sight, Patricia arrived, her face set in a determined expression that matched my own resolve. "Ready, sis?" she asked, pulling up to the curb. I nodded, adrenaline coursing through my veins. "More than ready. Let's do this." We worked with machine-like efficiency, swiftly loading every essential item into Patricia's car: clothes, personal mementos, important documents. With each box I carried out of that house, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders, as if I were shedding the shackles of Roy's deception one by one. As we stripped the home bare, I couldn't help but reflect on the decades of memories contained within those walls. The joyous celebrations, the hard-won triumphs, the quiet moments of domestic bliss. So much of my life had been interwoven with Roy's, and now I was cutting those threads forever. But rather than despair, I found strength in those recollections. They reminded me of the woman I had been before Roy's betrayal, strong, resilient, devoted. I had built this life from the ground up, and I would be damned if I let him take that away from me. With the practical matters handled, I turned my attention to one final, deeply symbolic act. I gathered Roy's most prized possessions, the ones that had once held such sentimental value, and arranged them in the center of our now barren living room. The vintage watch, the framed photos, the well-worn recliner, all laid out like an effigy of the life we had once shared. Atop that pile, I placed the evidence of his transgressions: bank statements, phone records, and those damning photos that had set this entire upheaval in motion. I wanted him to see, in no uncertain terms, the depth of his betrayal and the price he would pay for it. Finally, I penned a letter, pouring out my anguish and my resolve in equal measure. "You made your choices, Roy," I wrote, my hand trembling with a potent mix of heartache and rage. "And now you'll have to live with the consequences." With those parting words, I sealed the envelope, placing it atop the stack of evidence like a damning verdict. My message was clear. Our marriage was over, and there would be no second chances. Hand in hand with Patricia, I took one last look around the hollow shell that had once been my home. Then, with my head held high and my spirit fortified by an unshakable resolve, I walked out that door, slamming it shut on that chapter of my life once and for all. In that moment, I felt a surge of power and liberation unlike anything I'd ever experienced. Roy might have thought he could discard me like an old, worn-out relic, but he was gravely mistaken. I was just getting started. When Roy returned home from his supposed volunteer trip that weekend, I can only imagine the shock and confusion that must have washed over him. As he pulled into the driveway, the house appeared perfectly normal from the outside. But the moment he stepped through the front door, his world came crashing down around him. The home we had shared for decades was stripped bare, every trace of my existence carefully removed. In the center of the barren living room lay a tableau that must have chilled him to the bone, his most prized possessions arranged like an effigy, topped with the damning evidence of his infidelity. Bank statements, phone records, and those incriminating photos of him and his mistress, Lisa, stared back at him like a lurid accusation. And there, atop the pile, was my letter, a final, devastating proclamation that our marriage was over for good. I can only imagine the panic that must have seized him in those first few moments, the desperate confusion as he tried to make sense of the situation. His frantic calls to my phone went unanswered, of course, only adding to his growing desperation. Perhaps he thought I would eventually come to my senses, that this was all some elaborate misunderstanding that could be smoothed over with pretty words and empty promises. But as the hours ticked by and the reality of my absence sank in, the true weight of my actions must have hit him like a ton of bricks. Not only had I left him, but I had done so with a meticulous strategic precision that left him utterly powerless. The realization that I had been quietly gathering evidence and making preparations right under his nose, well, that had to sting in a way few betrayals could. In his desperation, I'm sure Roy reached out to Lisa, the woman for whom he had so callously discarded our marriage, but she too had faced the fallout of my carefully orchestrated revenge. With the evidence of their affair laid bare, her own life had been thrown into turmoil, thus leaving Roy well and truly alone to contend with the consequences of his actions. As the hours stretched into days, the isolation and shame must have weighed heavily upon him. This was no longer just a matter of a broken marriage. This was a personal hell of his own making, a purgatory crafted by the very woman he had so grievously underestimated. With each passing moment, I imagine Roy's mind replaying every interaction, every lie, every deception that had led to this moment. The years of memories we had shared, the life we had built together, all tainted by the bitter truth of his betrayal. And through it all, the damning evidence of his misdeeds stared back at him, a constant reminder of the price he had paid for his indiscretions. My letter, that final proclamation of freedom and resolve, must have felt like a dagger to his heart, twisting with every rereading. "You made your choices, Roy," I had written, my words carrying the weight of a life's worth of pain and disappointment. "And now you'll have to live with the consequences." For a man who had once held such power and control, the utter helplessness of his situation must have been a bitter pill to swallow. He had gambled everything on his ability to deceive me, and in the end, he had lost it all: his marriage, his dignity, and any semblance of the life he had once known. As for me, well, I had emerged from the ashes of our broken union like a phoenix reborn, stronger and more resilient than ever before. Roy's world might have been crumbling around him, but mine was just beginning anew, a life free from the shackles of his lies, a future forged on my own terms. And if he thought this was the end, that I would simply fade away into obscurity, well, he was about to learn just how mistaken he truly was. In the aftermath of my daring escape from Roy's web of lies, Patricia became my rock, my safe harbor in the storm. With a heavy heart, but an indomitable spirit, I moved in with her temporarily as I set about rebuilding my life from the ashes of our shattered marriage. Those first few nights, as the weight of everything I had endured came crashing down around me, Patricia and I would stay up late into the evening, sharing stories and shedding tears of both sorrow and relief. She had been my co-conspirator, my partner in crime, and now she was my shoulder to lean on as I navigated this new, uncertain path. "I'm so proud of you, sis," she would say, squeezing my hand reassuringly. "Roy never deserved a woman as strong and resilient as you." Her words, though simple, carried a profound weight, reminding me of the unbreakable bond we shared as sisters, a bond that had seen us through countless trials and tribulations over the years. We might have been separated by a few years in age, but in that moment, we were united as true equals, warriors who had stared down adversity and emerged victorious. As the days turned to weeks, Patricia and I began the process of finding me a new home, a sanctuary where I could start fresh, free from the ghosts of Roy's betrayal. We scoured listings, attended open houses, and eventually we found the perfect place, a cozy little bungalow with a beautiful garden out back, just waiting to be brought back to life. Moving into that new space, I felt a profound sense of rebirth wash over me. These walls held no echoes of the past, no lingering memories of the life I had once shared with Roy. This was my clean slate, my chance to redefine myself on my own terms. Slowly but surely, I began settling into a new routine, balancing my work at the hospital with the task of turning my house into a home. With each personal touch I added, each cherished memento I unpacked, I felt a little more of the weight lifting from my shoulders. My friends from work rallied around me, offering support and understanding in a way only those who had witnessed my turmoil could. They celebrated my newfound freedom, marveling at the strength it must have taken to orchestrate such a daring escape. And then there was Martha. My beautiful, resilient daughter had been kept largely in the dark about the true depths of Roy's deception, but when she learned the truth, she didn't hesitate to throw her support behind me wholeheartedly. "Mom, I'm just so sorry you had to go through all that," she said, tears shining in her eyes as we embraced. "But I'm in awe of your courage and your strength. You're an inspiration." Her words, spoken with such pure admiration and love, were like a soothing balm on the still raw wounds of my heart. In that moment, I realized that while Roy might have shattered our family's foundation, the bonds that truly mattered, the ones between mother and daughter, sister and sister, remained unbroken, fortified by a love and respect that transcended any one person's actions. As the weeks turned to months, I found myself settling into a new normal, one defined not by the shackles of Roy's betrayal, but by the empowering freedom of choosing my own path. Each morning I would wake up in my little bungalow, surrounded by the reminders of the life I had so bravely claimed for myself, and I would feel a surge of pride and contentment. This was my life now, a life forged in the fires of heartbreak and deception, but ultimately tempered into something stronger, more resilient, and more authentically mine than ever before. Roy might have thought he could break me, but in the end, he had only succeeded in unlocking a wellspring of inner strength I never knew I possessed. And as I looked ahead to the future, I did so with a renewed sense of purpose and a profound gratitude for the incredible network of women who had rallied around me. My sister, my daughter, my friends. Their love and support had been the light that guided me through my darkest days, and it was that same light that would continue to illuminate my path forward, come what may. The phone rings, jolting me out of my thoughts. I glance at the caller ID and freeze. It's Sadie, my daughter-in-law. My stomach twists into knots as I hesitate, my finger hovering over the answer button. Why would she be calling me out of the blue like this? We've barely spoken since the falling out with my son, Jack. I take a deep breath and answer, trying to keep my voice steady. Hello? Meredith, hi. Sadie's overly cheerful voice grates on my nerves. I'm so glad I caught you. Listen, Jack and I were hoping you could come over for dinner tonight. We have something special planned. I frown, immediately suspicious. Dinner? Tonight? Isn't this a bit last minute? I know, I'm sorry, Sadie gushes. It's just that we have some exciting news to share, and we really want you to be a part of it. Please say you'll come. I hesitate, my mind racing. It's been months since I've seen my granddaughter, Avery, not since I confronted Sadie about the bruises I found on Avery's arms. Bruises I'm convinced Sadie caused. But when I reported my suspicions, Sadie twisted everything around, making me look like a mentally unstable grandmother. The authorities found no proof. In the end, Jack believed his manipulative wife's lies over his own mother's concerns. The painful memories flashed through my mind. Marrying my college sweetheart Tom, the love of my life. Raising our twin boys Jack and Liam, the lights of our lives. Becoming a young widow far too soon when a drunk driver stole Tom away. Pouring my grief into building a successful catering business to support my sons. The joy of becoming a grandmother when Jack and his new wife Sadie had little Avery. And then the mounting dread as my instincts screamed that something was wrong. The way Avery flinched from Sadie's touch, the mysterious injuries Sadie couldn't explain. My world crumbling as everyone turned against me for trying to protect my granddaughter. Meredith, are you still there? Sadie's insistent voice snaps me back to the present. I close my eyes briefly, steeling myself. As much as it pains me, I can't pass up this chance to see Avery. To make sure she's okay, even if I have to play nice with Sadie to do it. Yes, I'm here, I reply, forcing a neutral tone. Dinner sounds lovely. What time should I be there? After noting down the details and ending the call, I lean back in my chair, my heart heavy. I have a bad feeling about this sudden invitation. In my bones, I know Sadie is up to something. I just pray that whatever it is won't put Avery in harm's way again. Determined to get to the bottom of this, I grab my purse and keys. If Sadie thinks she can fool me twice, she's got another thing coming. This time, I'll be ready for her games. This time, I won't let her hurt the ones I love most. Not again. Not ever. It's been 3 months since that uncomfortable dinner at Jack and Sadie's house. 3 months of walking on eggshells, trying to maintain a relationship with my granddaughter Avery while tiptoeing around Sadie's mercurial moods. I've been watching her like a hawk, but Sadie's a master at putting on a show when others are around. Today, Sadie called me in a panic, begging me to watch Avery while she runs off to yet another last-minute audition. She's been chasing her failed acting dreams for years, constantly leaving Avery in my care with barely a moment's notice. I don't mind spending time with my granddaughter, but I worry about the instability Sadie brings to her life. When I arrive at their house, Sadie practically shoves Avery into my arms, already halfway out the door. "Thanks so much, Meredith. You're a lifesaver." She calls over her shoulder before peeling out of the driveway. I sigh and look down at Avery, who clings to me tightly. My heart clenches as I notice a fresh bruise peeking out from under her sleeve. Gently, I pull back the fabric to get a better look. "Avery, sweetie, how did you get this owie?" I ask, keeping my voice soft and non-threatening. Avery's eyes fill with tears. I fell down. The rehearsed response sets off alarm bells in my head. Kneeling down to Avery's level, I take her tiny hands in mine. "Avery, you know you can tell Grandma Murmur anything, right? I'm here to keep you safe." Avery hesitates, glancing around fearfully as if Sadie might pop out any second. Then in a whisper she confesses, "Mommy gets mad sometimes. She grabs my arm too hard." White-hot rage courses through my veins, but I force myself to stay calm for Avery's sake. "Thank you for telling me the truth, brave girl. I won't let Mommy hurt you anymore." That evening, I confront Sadie the moment she returns. I lay out the evidence of Avery's injuries and repeat what Avery told me. But Sadie just laughs in my face. "You're being paranoid, Meredith. Avery's a clumsy child, and you know how kids exaggerate," she scoffs, rolling her eyes. "I know what I saw, Sadie. If you ever lay a hand on Avery again, I swear I'll—" Sadie cuts me off, her eyes flashing with malice. "You'll what? Who do you think Jack will believe? His devoted wife or his crazy old mother? I can ruin you, Meredith. I can make sure you never see Avery again." Her words knock the wind out of me. I know she's capable of following through on her threats. I've seen how she's wrapped Jack around her finger, poisoning him against me. In a last-ditch effort, I call Child Services to report Sadie's abuse. But just as Sadie predicted, they find no concrete proof. It's my word against hers. And when Jack finds out about the investigation, he's furious. "How could you accuse Sadie of something so horrible? She's an amazing mother," he shouts, pacing angrily in front of me. "Jack, please, I'm telling you the truth. Sadie is not who you think she is," I plead, desperate for him to see reason. But Sadie has already gotten to him. "No, Mom, Sadie's right. You're unhinged. You need help." The betrayal cuts deep. My own son, siding with his abusive wife over his own mother. I can hardly breathe through the pain. In the end, Sadie makes good on her threats. She slaps me with a restraining order, banning me from seeing Avery. Jack cuts me out of his life completely, believing Sadie's lies about my supposed mental instability. Alone in my house, I crumple to the floor, my heart shattered beyond repair. How did it come to this? How did I let Sadie destroy my family? But even as despair threatens to swallow me whole, a flicker of determination sparks to life in my chest. I won't let Sadie win. I won't let her corrupt my granddaughter. Somehow, some way, I will find a way to expose her true colors and save Avery, no matter the cost. Months drag by, each day a painful reminder of the gaping hole in my heart where Avery used to be. The restraining order Sadie slapped me with keeps me away from my granddaughter, and Jack refuses to take my calls. I feel like I'm drowning in a sea of helplessness and despair. But even in my darkest moments, I refuse to give up. I hire a private investigator to dig into Sadie's past, desperate for any shred of evidence that might expose her true nature. What the PI uncovers makes my blood run cold. Sadie, it turns out, has a history of latching on to wealthy men, bleeding them dry, and then moving on to her next target. She's left a trail of broken hearts and empty bank accounts in her wake, and now she's set her sights on my son. Armed with this new information, I confront Liam, Jack's twin brother. I know he's always had a soft spot for Sadie, but surely he can't condone her behavior. "Liam, please, you have to help me. Sadie is bad news. She's hurting Avery and using Jack for his money," I plead, showing him the evidence the PI gathered. Liam shifts uncomfortably, avoiding my gaze. I don't know, Mom. Sadie's always been good to me. Maybe you're just overreacting. Frustration boils up inside me. Open your eyes, Liam. She's manipulating you, just like she's manipulating Jack. Can't you see that? But Liam just shakes his head, backing away. I'm sorry, Mom. I can't get involved. This is between you and Sadie. I watch him walk away, my heart sinking. Even my own flesh and blood won't stand up for what's right. Desperate, I turn to Jack, hoping that the proof of Sadie's financial infidelity will be enough to snap him out of her spell. I corner him at his office, laying out the documents that show Sadie has been siphoning money from his company to fund her lavish lifestyle. Jack's face hardens as he flips through the papers. For a moment, I think I've finally gotten through to him. But then Sadie bursts in, crocodile tears streaming down her face. Jack, baby, don't listen to her. She's crazy, remember? She's just trying to tear us apart. Sadie wails, clinging to Jack's arm. Jack hesitates, glancing between me and Sadie. I hold my breath, praying he'll finally see the truth. But Sadie's hold on him is too strong. Jack's expression turns to one of disgust as he throws the documents back at me. Enough, Mom. I'm sick of your lies and manipulations. Sadie is my wife, and I trust her completely. I want you out of my life, for good this time. His words hit me like a physical blow. I stumble back, my vision blurring with tears. Jack, please, I'm just trying to protect you. To protect Avery, I whisper, my voice cracking. But Jack is already turning away, his arm around Sadie's shoulders. Stay away from my family, Mom. I mean it. You're dead to me. The world tilts on its axis as I watch my son walk away, choosing his abuser over his own mother. The pain is too much to bear. I clutch at my chest, gasping for air as a searing agony rips through me. The last thing I remember before everything goes black is the sound of Sadie's mocking laughter echoing in my ears. I wake up in a hospital bed, hooked up to beeping machines. The doctors tell me I suffered a severe heart attack brought on by stress and emotional trauma. They urge me to rest, to avoid any further upsets. But how can I rest when my granddaughter is still in danger, when my own sons have turned their backs on me? Staring at the sterile white ceiling, I make a vow to myself. No matter what it takes, no matter how long, I will find a way to save Avery and expose Sadie for the monster she truly is, even if it destroys me in the process. A year has passed since my heart attack, a year of painful isolation and unanswered questions. Jack and Liam remain stubbornly out of reach, and every attempt to contact Avery is met with stony silence. The ache in my chest has nothing to do with my physical health and everything to do with the gaping hole where my family used to be. So when Sadie shows up on my doorstep one rainy evening, bruised and sobbing, I'm equal parts shocked and wary. She collapses into my arms, her body shaking with tremors. Meredith, please, you have to help me. Jack, he's out of control. He's been hitting me, and I'm afraid he's going to hurt Avery next. She gasps out between hiccuping breaths. I stiffen, my mind reeling. Could I have been wrong all this time? Could Jack, my gentle, loving son, truly be capable of such violence? I didn't know where else to go. I'm so sorry for everything, for turning Jack against you. I was just scared, Sadie whimpers, clinging to me like a lifeline. Against my better judgment, I find myself softening. The bruises on her face and arms look all too real, and the terror in her eyes is palpable. Shh, it's okay. You're safe now, I murmur, guiding her into the house. Over the next few days, as Sadie hides out in my guest room, she spins a tale of horror and abuse that makes my stomach churn. She describes how Jack flew into a rage when she confronted him about his drinking, how he slammed her against the wall and choked her until she blacked out. She shows me the finger-shaped bruises on her throat, the cigarette burns on her thighs. He said he'd kill me if I ever left him, Meredith. He said he'd make sure I never saw Avery again, Sadie confesses, her voice hollow with despair. But doubt gnaws at me, warring with the instinct to protect. I think back to all the times I suspected Sadie of hurting Avery, of manipulating Jack. Could I have misjudged her so badly? Sadie seems to sense my hesitation. She takes my hands in hers, her eyes shimmering with tears. I know I've given you every reason not to trust me, Meredith, but I swear I'm telling you the truth. Jack is a monster, and Avery and I need your help to escape him. Looking into her pleading face, I make a decision. I can't turn my back on her, Not if there's even a chance that Avery is in danger. Over the next few weeks, as Sadie and I grow closer, I start to question everything I thought I knew. She's so different from the cold, calculating woman I once believed her to be. She's vulnerable, broken, desperate for a mother's love and guidance. I find myself opening up to her, sharing stories of Jack and Liam's childhood, of my own struggles as a young widow. Sadie listens intently, offering comfort and understanding in return. For the first time in longer than I can remember, I don't feel so alone. But even as I start to let my guard down, nagging doubts persist. Something about Sadie's story doesn't quite add up. The way she flinches at odd moments, the inconsistencies in her timeline. I try to push my suspicions aside, telling myself I'm just being paranoid. Until the day I accidentally overhear a phone call that shatters everything. Sadie is in the guest room, the door cracked open, just a sliver. Her voice floats out, low and urgent. "I can't keep this up much longer, Liam." She's starting to ask too many questions. We need to move forward with the plan before she figures out what's really going on. Ice floods my veins as the truth hits me like a sledgehammer. Sadie hasn't changed at all. She's been playing me for a fool, just like she played Jack. And now she's plotting with my own son to destroy what's left of my family. Betrayal tastes like ashes in my mouth as I confront the ugly truth. Sadie, the woman I've opened my home and heart to, is nothing more than a viper in sheep's clothing. The bruises, the tears, the tales of abuse, all a carefully crafted lie to manipulate me. I think back to all the inconsistencies in her story, the nagging doubts I pushed aside in my desperation to believe her. How could I have been so blind? Determined to uncover the full extent of her deception, I wait until Sadie leaves for one of her mysterious errands and slip into the guest room. It doesn't take long to find what I'm looking for, a small memory card tucked inside her jewelry box. With shaking hands, I insert the card into my laptop. The screen fills with video after damning video of Sadie coaching Avery, my sweet, innocent granddaughter, to lie. "Remember, Avery, when Grandma asks about the bruises, you say Daddy did it. You say he hits you and Mommy, okay?" Sadie's sickly sweet voice makes my stomach turn. Avery, her eyes wide and confused, nods obediently. "Daddy hits me and Mommy." Bile rises in my throat as the truth sinks in. Sadie has been orchestrating this whole charade, using her own daughter as a pawn in her twisted game, and I fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. I'm so engrossed in the horrifying footage that I don't hear Sadie return until it's too late. She bursts into the room, her face twisting with rage when she sees what I'm watching. "You nosy bitch, you just couldn't leave well enough alone, could you?" She snarls, lunging for the laptop. I jerk it out of her reach, my own anger boiling over. "How could you, Sadie? How could you use your own child like this? Avery deserves so much better than a mother like you." Sadie throws her head back and laughs, the sound chilling me to the bone. "Oh, spare me the righteous indignation, Meredith. You're just as pathetic as the rest of them, so desperate for love, for family, that you'll believe anything I say." She stalks closer, her eyes glittering with malice. "You want to know the truth? Fine. I never loved Jack. I never loved Avery. They were just means to an end, a way to get what I wanted." I recoil in horror, my heart breaking for my son, for my granddaughter. "And what is it you want, Sadie? Money? Power?" Sadie smirks, her lips curling into a cruel sneer. "All of the above, and more. I want to destroy you, Meredith. I want to take everything you love and burn it to the ground, just like you tried to do to me." The pieces click into place with sickening clarity. All the lies, the manipulation, the abuse, it was all a twisted form of revenge, a way to punish me for seeing through her facade. "You're sick, Sadie. You need help," I whisper, backing away slowly. Sadie's eyes narrow, her gaze locking onto the laptop clutched to my chest. "Give me the memory card, Meredith. Give it to me, and maybe I'll let you live." But I'm done being her victim, her pawn. I've spent too long letting her control me, letting her poison my family. In one swift motion, I yank the memory card from the laptop and shove it down my shirt, into my bra. Sadie shrieks with fury, launching herself at me like a rabid animal. We grapple on the floor, a tangle of clawing fingers and flying fists. Sadie is younger, stronger, fueled by a manic rage. But I have something she doesn't, a mother's love, a grandmother's fierce determination to protect her own. I manage to grab a heavy paperweight from the desk, slamming it against Sadie's temple with all my might. She crumples to the ground, blood trickling from the gash on her head. For a moment I'm frozen, staring at her unconscious form in shock. Then, with trembling fingers, I reach for my phone and dial 911. I need the police, right away. I have evidence of a crime. Please hurry. As sirens wail in the distance, I slump against the wall, my heart racing. I know the battle is far from over, but for the first time in years, I feel a flicker of hope. Sadie's reign of terror ends today. I'll make sure of it. The memory card feels like a lead weight against my chest as I watch Sadie's unconscious form, waiting for the police to arrive. Part of me is tempted to flee, to take the evidence and run. But I know I can't do that. I have to see this through, for Avery's sake. With shaking hands, I retrieve my phone and start recording. If Sadie wakes up, I need her confession on tape. I need irrefutable proof of her crimes. Minutes tick by, each one feeling like an eternity. Just as I'm about to give up hope, Sadie stirs, groaning as she clutches her bleeding head. "You fucking bitch," she hisses, struggling to sit up. "You're going to pay for that." I keep the camera trained on her, my voice steady despite the fear coursing through my veins. "It's over, Sadie. The police are on their way. They'll see the videos of you coaching Avery to lie. They'll know what you did." Sadie's eyes widen, then narrow into slits. "You think you're so clever, don't you? Playing the victim, the concerned grandmother. But you're just as twisted as I am, Meredith. You're the one who turned your own sons against each other. You're the one who couldn't let go, couldn't accept that Jack chose me over you." I flinch at her words, the grain of truth in them stinging like salt in a wound. "I may have made mistakes, Sadie, but I never abused a child. I never manipulated and lied and cheated like you." Sadie lets out a harsh bark of laughter. "Oh, but you did. You lied to yourself every single day. You pretended to be this perfect, loving mother, when in reality, you were just a pathetic old woman desperate for attention." She staggers to her feet, her face twisted into a grotesque mask of hatred. "You want my confession? Fine. I did it. I coached Avery to say Jack abused her. I siphoned money from his company. I fucked his brother. And I'd do it all again just to see the look on your face when you realized you'd lost everything." Nausea churns in my gut at the sheer depravity of her words. "Why, Sadie? Why go to such lengths to destroy my family?" Sadie's lips curl into a sneer. "Because I could. Because it was easy. Because none of you ever saw me coming." She takes a step forward, her eyes glinting with a manic light. "And now I'm going to make sure you never tell anyone what you know." Fear lances through me as Sadie lunges, her hands outstretched like claws. I dodge to the side, but not fast enough. She catches me by the hair, yanking me backwards. We tumble to the ground, my phone skittering out of reach. Sadie straddles my chest, her fingers wrapping around my throat. "You should have minded your own business, you meddling cunt," she snarls, tightening her grip. Black spots dance across my vision as I gasp for air. I claw at Sadie's hands, but she's too strong, too fueled by rage and desperation. Just as I'm about to black out, the door bursts open. Sadie's weight is suddenly gone, replaced by blessed oxygen flooding my lungs. Through blurry eyes, I see Jack hauling Sadie off me, his face a mask of fury. "Get off her, you psychotic bitch!" Sadie shrieks and thrashes in his grip, spitting curses. "I'll kill you! I'll kill all of you!" But Jack doesn't let go. He wrestles her to the ground, pinning her arms behind her back. "It's over, Sadie. I know everything. I heard your confession. The police are on their way," he says, his voice shaking with emotion. Sadie goes limp, her fight draining away as the reality of her situation sinks in. You set me up. You knew I'd come here." Jack nods, his jaw tight. "I've been onto you for months, Sadie. I just needed proof. And thanks to my mother, now I have it." He looks up at me, his eyes shining with tears. "I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm sorry I didn't believe you. I'm sorry I let her tear our family apart." Sobs rack my chest as I crawl towards my son, my baby boy. He gathers me into his arms, holding me tight as the sound of sirens fills the air. "It's okay, Mom. It's over now. She can't hurt us anymore." And for the first time in years, I believe him. The aftermath of Sadie's arrest is a whirlwind of police statements, media scrutiny, and legal proceedings. Through it all, Jack remains by my side, a steadfast presence as we navigate the fallout of his wife's betrayal. I'm so sorry, Mom, he says for the 100th time, his eyes haunted by guilt and regret. I should have listened to you from the start. I should have seen through her lies. I squeeze his hand, offering what comfort I can. You couldn't have known, Jack. Sadie fooled us all. The important thing is that we're together now, and Avery is safe. At the mention of his daughter, Jack's face crumples. I failed her, Mom. I failed my own child. What kind of father am I? The kind who loves his daughter enough to admit his mistakes and fight for her, I say firmly. Avery is lucky to have you, Jack. Don't ever doubt that. As the days turn into weeks, the true extent of Sadie's crimes comes to light. The police uncover a trail of fraud, embezzlement, and blackmail stretching back years. It seems Sadie had been planning her revenge long before she ever met Jack. And then there's Liam, my other son, the one I thought had betrayed me along with Sadie. When he finally comes to see me, his face is etched with shame and remorse. I'm sorry, Mom, he whispers, his voice choked with tears. I never meant for any of this to happen. Sadie, she had something on me, something I couldn't let Jack find out about. My heart aches for my broken, misguided boy. What did she have on you, Liam? He takes a shuddering breath, avoiding my gaze. I embezzled money from Jack's company years ago. I was in debt, and I didn't know what else to do. Sadie found out, and she used it to blackmail me into helping her. Anger and disappointment war with the overwhelming love I feel for my son. Oh, Liam, why didn't you come to me? To Jack, we would have helped you. Liam shakes his head, his shoulders slumped in defeat. I was too ashamed. I thought I could handle it on my own, but Sadie, she's a master manipulator. She made me believe that I had no choice but to do what she said. I pull my son into my arms, holding him tight as he sobs against my shoulder. It's okay, Liam. We'll get through this together, as a family. And we do. Jack files for divorce and sole custody of Avery, using Sadie's confession and the evidence from the memory card to prove her unfit as a mother. Liam turns himself in for his role in the embezzlement, ready to face the consequences of his actions. Through it all, Avery remains our shining light, our reason to keep going. With Sadie behind bars, Jack and I work together to give her the stable, loving home she deserves. I love you, Grandma, she whispers one night as I tuck her into bed, her little arms wrapped around my neck. Tears sting my eyes as I hug her close, marveling at the resilience of this brave, beautiful child. I love you too, sweetheart, more than anything in this world. As I watch her drift off to sleep, I feel a sense of peace wash over me. For so long I'd been consumed by anger and bitterness, by the need for revenge against the woman who'd stolen my family. But now, with Sadie gone and my sons by my side, I realize that the only thing that truly matters is the love we have for each other. We may be broken, but we're not beyond repair. With time, patience, and the unshakable bond of family, I know we'll heal. We'll find our way back to each other, stronger than ever before. And that, in the end, is the sweetest revenge of all. 5 years have passed since Sadie's arrest, and life has settled into a new normal. Jack and Avery moved in with me after the divorce, and together we've built a home filled with love, laughter, and healing. Avery, now a precocious 10-year-old, has blossomed under our care. Gone is the timid, frightened child she once was, replaced by a confident, vibrant girl who lights up every room she enters. Today, as we celebrate Avery's birthday, I can't help but marvel at how far we've come. The backyard is filled with balloons and streamers, the air thick with the scent of barbecue and the sound of children's laughter. Jack catches my eye from across the lawn, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. He looks lighter, unburdened by the weight of Sadie's betrayal. In the years since the divorce, he's thrown himself into being the best father he can be, determined to make up for lost time. As I watch him scoop Avery into his arms, spinning her around until she shrieks with glee, my heart swells with pride and gratitude. My son, my brave, resilient boy, has come so far. And then there's Liam, the prodigal son returned. After serving his time for embezzlement, he's worked hard to earn back our trust, to prove himself worthy of a second chance. It hasn't been easy, but slowly, surely, we've welcomed him back into the fold. Avery adores her Uncle Liam, and he dotes on her in return, showering her with affection and attention. As the party winds down and the guests start to leave, Avery bounds over to me, her face flushed with excitement. "Grandma, can I ask you something?" I smile, pulling her onto my lap. Of course, sweetheart, what is it? Avery fidgets, suddenly shy. I was wondering, would it be okay if I called you Mom? Tears spring to my eyes at the unexpected request. Oh, Avery, are you sure that's what you want? She nods, her little face solemn. You've always been like a mom to me, Grandma. You take care of me, and you love me, just like a real mom should. And I love you too. I hug her close, my heart bursting with emotion. I would be honored to be your mom, Avery. I love you more than anything in this world. Jack, who's been listening nearby, comes over to join us, his own eyes suspiciously bright. I think that's a wonderful idea, Avery, and I know it's what your grandpa would have wanted too. We sit there for a long moment, holding each other tight, basking in the warmth of our little family. It's not the family I ever expected to have, but it's the one I cherish with every fiber of my being. Later that night, as I tuck Avery into bed, she looks up at me with sleepy eyes. Mom, can you tell me a story about Grandpa? I settle beside her, stroking her hair as I begin to speak. Your grandpa was the kindest, most loving man I ever knew. He would have adored you, Avery, just like I do. As I spin tales of Tom's gentle heart and quirky sense of humor, I feel his presence all around us, watching over our little family with pride and love. We've been through so much, endured so many trials and heartaches. But we've emerged stronger, more united than ever before. Sadie tried to destroy us, to tear us apart with her lies and manipulations, but in the end, she only brought us closer together, forging an unbreakable bond that will last a lifetime. As I look around at my son, my granddaughter, and the home we've built together, I know that this is what true happiness feels like. This is what it means to be a family. And no matter what the future holds, no matter what challenges we may face, I know that we'll face them together. Always.